Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome today my special guest on this special day. Today is St. Patrick's Day, and as a coincidence, my guest is from Ireland, right, Keith? So Keith Matthews is one of the experts in Shopify, in building Shopify websites and e-commerce platforms. And Keith is an old friend. We've worked together in the past in a different life. And today we are here together, and he is going to tell us all about how to build a very successful Shopify e-commerce platform. So Keith, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And please, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience, and then we can take it from there and go directly into the topic.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks for the opportunity to talk. Always good to catch up again. So my name is Keith Matthews, and I work with a team of Shopify developers, and I own an agency in Dublin. And we build Shopify and Shopify Plus stores on the e-commerce platform Shopify, which I'm sure, as a Canadian company, I'm sure a lot of the listeners will be well aware of Shopify's growth over the past few years. So Shopify is a all-in-one e-commerce platform which allows small business and large businesses to sell online and successfully scale their businesses online. And as part of that software platform, they have an accredited expert program similar to Cisco Gold Partner or Microsoft Gold Partner. I, about maybe 2013, 2014, founded Milk Bottle Labs, and at the moment we are growing at a great rate, and we're based out of Dublin, and the majority of our customers are in the UK and on the east coast of the United States, and in, of course, Ireland.
Wow, this is great, Keith. So, before we go into the details, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey? Like, how long have you been running this business? How easy it was? Tell us a little bit about some personal experience, life experience.
Well, there's nothing easy, Mark. But I started many years ago. I studied science, and I started at that time around 99, 2000, actually buying domain names. At the time, the .com, TLD, top levels, domain extension was the ultimate place to own online real estate. And I stumbled across an industry in that journey, which was basically travel affiliate marketing, which was the sharing of links. And unknown to myself, it was the early days of actual digital marketing, but nobody had actually coined the phrase digital marketing. But there was also a challenge there, because every time I went to attempt to actually set up an online business, it was incredibly expensive to join the domain name, to online payment gateways and that kind of thing. So at the same time, even though I didn't know it, Toby, the founder of Shopify, who was a developer, who's of German descent and an immigrant into Canada, decided to start Shopify. So all of the pain points of connecting payment gateways, connecting domains, connecting legal documentation, adding your product easily, he actually found that quite difficult himself. But as a developer, he decided to actually create the platform. And Shopify was started around 2000, I think it was 2006, 2007. So in the meantime, I had a database of domain names, and I was very interested in e-commerce. I was always interested. But I understood that the systems around the things that I wanted to do, unfortunately, were underdeveloped. So I kept the domain names. To do a university course in e-commerce at the time, it didn't even exist. So I did a course in web development. And of course, what happened then, around 2000, 2001, the .com crash occurred. So there was never, ever a chance of me ever getting into that kind of industry, or at least I didn't believe so. So roll on a few years, I ended up in Bermuda, where we actually met. And I embarked on my first startup, and I built a Groupon clone in Bermuda, which was interesting because Bermuda has a population of about 60,000 people, and it was very successful. And I exited that startup in 2012, And then by the time I arrived back in Ireland in 2012, lo and behold, Shopify as a platform had matured. They had a partner program. And I then began to kind of revisit the ideas that I had many, many years prior to that. But the facilities were there in the form of Shopify. I still owned all the domain names, and I began building Shopify stores. And in the experience of actually building those businesses out, like one was an online flower shop, another one was an online iPhone case shop, would you believe? I was importing them from the US. Yeah. And in doing that, I realized that in actual fact, I was actually quite interested in building the stores. And I got an email from Shopify one day, I think it was 2011, to say that they had an accredited experts program. So they asked me would I be interested. And basically, I built out a number of stores. They tested the stores. They looked at the work, and I was appointed an official Shopify expert. And that's how basically Milk Bottle Labs began.
Wow, this is a real great journey, right? As you said, no entrepreneur will have an easy way, right? You will never have an easy way in. No. So just before we dive into the topic, as always, I want to thank our sponsors and our strategic partners. Today, we want to thank our partner, strategic partner, CIMO, the Chartered Institute of Marketing Management of Ontario. This is an organization which I am proud to be part of as well. And I want to thank our platinum sponsor, Agora Office Space. This is from where we are broadcasting live every week. They give us their studio that is very nicely equipped with all the bells and whistles that we need for this webinar. So having said this, and having in a way done what needed to be done, Keith, I want to ask you a question. Many people now, especially after COVID or during COVID, because we are still during, everybody is jumping into the e-commerce space. Everybody, in a way, wants to sell online. What is your first advice to any business who is trying to do something online? How do you guide them to start approaching an e-commerce store?
It's a really good question, Mark, and we answer it every day. There's a bit of a problem at the moment in digital marketing because the majority of tools in digital marketing or e-commerce are marketed as self-build. So if you're a digital native, the chances are you can sign up to Shopify, and there is absolutely no doubt that if you're competent, you can actually successfully build a store in less than a day. There is no doubt that you can do that. The problem is that there's hundreds of touch points within the Shopify store that the chances are you will miss them. And the first misstep that we see in stores that we enter that have been built by an individual who, hasn't necessarily built a store before is SEO and content and basically the data within the store. So the first thing I would say to anybody is you need to plan your steps. If I go to a mechanic to fix my car, he's a trained professional. And if I want to get my hair cut, you may notice that we're on lockdown level 5 in Ireland. We're actually, I think we are the longest locked down country in Europe, would you believe, at the moment. So the barbers are closed, so I haven't had a haircut. But if I want to get a haircut, I will go to a trained professional to get a haircut. So my first piece of advice is, depending on your budget, at some point you need to talk to somebody that knows what they're doing. And that does not necessarily mean that you need to spend 50,000 on a website or 10,000 on a website, but you need to take advice from professionals. That's the first piece of advice I would use. In terms of Shopify itself, Shopify is a wonderfully easy platform to get started on. And there's a few very, 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 very obvious mistakes that people make. The first thing is that, for example, on Shopify, you really should purchase the ultimate theme that you're going to use as the base design of your store rather than going for a free theme. And photography is a very, very, very big gap that we see as well. Because we have good phones in our hands, they always say that the best camera that you have is the one in your hand. If you have a budget at all for photography, photography sells, and professional photography will sell even more. So all of the things that you think you can do yourself are maybe the things that you should actually take advice on.
You know, I totally agree with you, because as much as we as entrepreneurs, we always try to save, right? And to, or in a way, more optimize our expenses. But we always say you have to focus on your core business, and then you need to let professionals run your technology or things that are not your core competencies, right? Because if I know, for example, how to sell, I don't know, pens online, I might not know how to build the store to do that. And this is why I need to come to people like you or other professionals who are going to help us to understand this. So from what you said, if I want to summarize a little bit, I am just retaining a little bit of headlines. So first of all, we need to have a professional to be with us, understand how to do the SEOs. Photography is very important, right? And building and actually buying the theme, because it's going to give you a much powerful tool, right? So that you can exploit it to its maximum capabilities, right?
So just on that, so I'll just dig a little bit deeper in Shopify. There's two main aspects of Shopify. So you sign up to the platform and it starts at $29 a month. It goes right up to $2,000 a month for Shopify Plus. So if you're doing more than $1 million a year, it may make sense to just spend a flat fee of $2,000 a month. Now, $1 million a year may sound like a lot of money to some people. So let's say you're at the other end and you just want to start with your side hustle, okay? First thing you do is you sign up for your free trial. Then you pay $29 a month plus some commissions for transactions to Shopify. And so it's very cheap. So to enter the area of Shopify is very cheap. But within the Shopify ecosystem, there's two other elements to the platform. One of them is applications, okay? So for example, everybody gets abandoned carts if they abandon their cart, or a newsletter from an e-commerce store that they love. And there's an application that's connected to the Shopify store called Klaviyo, which is an email marketing platform. But there's 6,000 applications available to the Shopify store owner, okay? And some of them will create a pop-up if you have $49 in your cart and you get free shipping at $50, it'll say spend $1 more and you get free shipping. And there's loads of applications in the store, in the Shopify app store, to add value to your store. And we would always say to people, there's 6,000, but don't put too many in, because number one, the cost adds up. And number two, it injects excess code into your store and it slows it down, and users don't like a slow store. Now, on the other side of it, the ultimate look and feel of your store is based on the theme that you choose. And themes are free, okay? And themes can be purchased. So what most people do to save money is they use the free theme. And incidentally, we have one customer that we've seen do over $5 million a year on a free Shopify theme. But if you add the free theme, the chances are the functionality that's in a paid theme is in the apps that you have to add to compensate for the fact that you didn't spend $250 in the theme, okay? So they are little kind of tricks of the trade whereby the customer thinks they are saving money, but in actual fact, they're going to add applications to their store to compensate for what's not in the theme, and that will slow down the store, and then you may lose visitors as a result.
Yeah.
So that's a prime example of talking to somebody that's in 200 stores a year. That's just something really, really simple that, you know, if you're thinking about going on to Shopify, that's what you should consider.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You know, we also do e-commerce platforms, but you know, I will not name it. It's on a competing platform. But
that's okay. That's okay.
So and we have the same concerns as well. Is that we save on the theme at the beginning, and then later, oh, we need this feature. Then we buy the plugin. Or at the beginning we use the free plugin, and then you start having problems. Then you have to upgrade to a paid plugin, and then, as you said, it's just going to add up. And then you said, why I didn't buy the theme from the get-go, and then maybe just get an additional 1 or 2 apps just to complement the gap or to fill the gap, rather than building the whole portal just on apps, right? Which adds to the technical complexity of a website. So if you are, we were talking and we were preparing for this session, and one of the major things we were discussing about is, if I want to ask you if you want to give the 5 do's and don'ts for anyone who's trying to build an e-commerce platform, and especially, I wouldn't say especially on Shopify. So I will have 2 folds to the question. So first of all, what are the do's and don'ts? Yeah. And then if I am not on Shopify, why I should consider moving to Shopify?
Yeah. So the first thing on that, Mark, that's a very good question. First thing is that there is other platforms out there. And we have, as they say in Ireland, we've stuck our mast to the sail of Shopify. Shopify has been good to us. We believe in it. We're very passionate. But we get, confronted or questioned or challenged on a daily basis by other people using other platforms. And, if people prefer to use Magento or prefer to use, WordPress, WooCommerce or other platforms, I have no problem with that. There is loads of room for other platforms. That's the first thing. In terms of the question about the do's and the don'ts, it's a really interesting question. The single biggest thing that we've noticed in Millpot Labs in Dublin, and this is actually talking to clients in the US more so than anywhere else, is that there's a lot of retailers that are in trouble and their retail stores are closed and they have a retail store maybe with 10 or 20,000 SKUs. So straight away, they want to go online and they think that they have to move the 20,000 SKUs online. And the only way you can do that is to manually do it. And it's a lot of work. So the first thing I would say is, if you're a retail business and as a result of COVID, you're going to pivot online, because for most people it is a pivot, although technically it's just the next step. But there's a lot of retailers out there, bricks and mortar retailers, who'd never ever considered going online because they were on a high street in a city with a good population, maybe in the United States or the UK, and they never felt they needed it. But if you try and get those 20,000 SKUs online, you will not do it, because you will always be never doing it. So if you cut your SKU count down to 500 products and gather 500 photos with 500 unique descriptions and break it down into small pieces. When we eat steak, we cut it up into pieces. So cut your retail store into pieces and then move online. And that is the single biggest thing that we see: people thinking about something in January and not doing it for 2 years because they thought they had to bring all of the SKUs online. There's a principle, Mark, in online retail. It's called minimum viable product.
Yes.
And you can actually launch a store with a single SKU count. And then you add a SKU next week, or you add 20 next month. And all of a sudden, over the course of a year, you've got thousands of products online, and Google is indexing your site and it sees that you are actually adding products. These guys are good. Google then brings you up the rankings, and then you have to spend less on your Google AdWords. So that's kind of a first thing I would say is, don't obsess about the number of SKUs. Incidentally, Shopify has an unlimited SKU availability. So Shopify does not limit the number of products that you have in the store.
Okay.
The second thing I would say, Mark, is don't try and be a Walmart or an Amazon. We get many inquiries where people have no idea what they want, but because Jeff Bezos is the most successful entrepreneur in the world, or because the family that own Walmart are one of the wealthiest families in the US, they just say, I want that. You need to create something that represents your brand and tells your story and reflects your business. Okay? Just because Amazon's page design is a certain way, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to copy it. Now, incidentally, there's a Shopify theme that looks very like Amazon. And if you want to look like Amazon, you can. But, Amazon has thousands of employees optimizing the site. So if you're entering e-commerce for the first time and your budget is, I don't know, let's just pick a number like $5,000 or $10,000. I mean, you could not ever expect to have something which would look like, you know, the busiest e-commerce stores in the world. So I would say to everybody, just manage your expectations and take one step at a time. You know, eventually you will see success, but you know, just be completely realistic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Now,
let me just
go
ask
ahead.
you one question about that, because I always think about it, but also I have a little bit another philosophy, right? Let's debate a little bit. I always say that the big companies, right, as you said, they have thousands of employees. They put probably hundreds of thousands in research, if not millions in research. And then when they have a feature that works, technically it's based on tons of research. So the idea is that if it works, why I should recreate the wheel and do something different rather than taking, I am not saying copying the whole site, but like if I like one of the features and it's working, why I don't just duplicate it and try to put it on my portal, because it's already studied, researched, proven, right? So what do you think about that?
Well, look, it's an interesting question, and there is absolutely no doubt about it that I would say always look at these sites. I mean, there's no doubt that Amazon's post-purchase marketing and its account facility and its structure is absolutely optimized to the nth degree. So, but the thing about it is, if you use Shopify, you're also using a platform which is optimized to the nth degree. So you actually don't have to look too far. So to give you an example, as a Shopify merchant, and Shopify referred to merchants as entrepreneurs that are on the platform selling, there's probably 1.3 million stores on Shopify, and Shopify are also optimizing elements of the page. So you don't have to actually do anything. Okay. Now, what I would say is that what I'm saying is don't try and be the next Walmart or be the next Amazon, because you won't sleep at night because it takes years to get there. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with signing up to their newsletter and getting their updates and watching their platform and seeing what they're doing. Of course you should do that. The same way as car companies watch each other and buy Teslas and take them apart in a factory. I mean, you always have to keep an eye out to the leaders in your field. And likewise, you should always, if you're in the fashion sector, or if you're in the craft sector, there's a massive craft business in Ireland. We work with a lot of crafters that produce authentic gifts and pottery and that kind of thing. And you should always be looking around at what the most successful retailers are. But obsess about it, I think you just need to manage it. Incidentally, Shopify had a patent on the one-click checkout up to about, I think, 2 years ago. And the one-click checkout, one-click checkout is now something that Shopify have virtually not cloned or copied, but they have. If you sign up to Shopify Payments, which is back-ended by Stripe as the gateway on your store, if a customer purchases a second time, they get an SMS to their phone and the cart is pre-filled, which is a similar experience to the one-click checkout. Yeah. So I suppose in summary, always be looking, always be watching. But we hear a lot of people saying, you've done this job for that customer, we want that. And it doesn't work like that. That what we've done, number one, you're not going to get it because the customer has paid for it. But you have a story to tell, you have a particular product, you may actually have a look and feel that suits your brand better. That's what I'd say.
Perfect. Yes, I agree with you, so you just need to balance what you're really taking out of others and how you will be creative to create your own brand identity as well, right? Because this is one of the most important things, that what is your unique selling proposition? Because I don't think that you will be the only one who is selling this particular product online, right? So there is competition. Yeah. And then why go to your store? And as you said, it's the story, it's the spin, it's also the value that you provide. So I totally agree with you. Okay, so now let's continue with the do's and don'ts. So what else do you have for us?
So the single biggest mistake that people make, sorry, I think I've said that 3 times, but we're,
so you have single mistakes. Go ahead.
Exactly. This is a big one, and this has a long-term effect on your store performance. And this is where you have a distributor or a supplier that is giving you the information that goes onto your website. Okay, so prime example at the moment, we're building a store for a in Ireland we call them garden centers. So they sell plants, they sell giftware, and they sell furniture. And the supplier of the furniture, which is a high-end product, it's thousands of dollars, has supplied them with a CSV of all of the descriptions, all of the prices and SKUs of their product. Okay. Now, the problem with that is that that distributor has probably supplied that to 50 customers, retailers of the product all over the world. And so what happens? So they all put up the same description of that set of 4 chairs and a table and an umbrella. Okay. And what happens is Google indexes the site and they see this as duplicated content. And straight away, they get pushed down the ranking. Now, the majority of first-time e-commerce entrepreneurs, you know, they won't really sign up to a service to analyze their SEO because they're obsessed with sales. Okay. And when sales go down, the chances are they're down because nobody can find them. So what they do is they compensate sales with ad spend on CPC, cost per click marketing, like Google and Facebook. So a lot of e-commerce store owners, and this isn't just for Shopify, don't actually realize that although it may be convenient to get that content in a CSV, the long-term damage is fatal and it is expensive. So unknowingly, you have to spend on Google because Google's search engine has pushed you down. So you have to compensate by giving the money back to Google, when in actual fact, the proper way to do it is to rewrite the content in some form or another, or even like remove or reduce the content and plant your own look and feel to that particular content. But in a project, in a small to medium e-commerce project, it could take, you know, anything from 8 to 16 weeks to go online. Entrepreneurs have no time for this. And they don't understand having to pay for it, and they don't understand the cost. So the long-term benefits, depending on what you're selling, are ultimately it's going to be expensive. Yeah, just to go back to something that you said earlier on, the About Us page on most stores that we see in their analytics account is the most trafficked page on any store, and it is phenomenal the amount of people that do not take a half an hour or an hour to introduce themselves and put in a picture of the town that they're from, or the first product that they've created, or their team, or proper, you know, address details of their actual business. Because many businesses now are online only, and they're run out of maybe people's homes. A lot of people don't like to put their home address in.
Yes.
But you know, if your home address is the address of the business, well then, you know, like a lot of people, if they're using a fulfillment center, will put the address of the fulfillment center as the address. Yeah. So another, I won't say the single biggest, but another big problem is people not taking the time to curate their About Us page. And the first thing people will do is go onto the About Us page, and it's, you know, you're in Nova Scotia, maybe the pottery is created in your own town, maybe you know somebody in Nova Scotia, and maybe you have a reason to make that purchase. And a lot of people don't fill out that page.
Yeah, I agree with you, Keith. And actually, I want just to do a small segue, because we covered this, the topic of like we are working from home and then you don't want to put your address and this kind of stuff. And actually, I will be tackling this next month. We will be having, I am not going to announce yet who, but we're going to have one of the biggest companies in the world with us on the webinar talking about cybersecurity. So I will not announce it today because I want to keep the suspense a little bit. It is confirmed, but the announcement will come in due time for the lineup in May. However, we were discussing about that, and this is why we are talking about, if you don't want to tell your address, then go and get a virtual office subscription Like, for example, now we are with Agora Office Space.
Agora, yeah.
They have virtual offices, so you can get an address, you can list your business over there, and then you can tell your customer that this is your official business location, whereas you might be operating out of your basement, and you don't want to tell them about this. Because at some point you don't want an unhappy customer to knock on your door and say, "Hey, you sold me a product which I don't like," right? Or God forbid you owe money to a supplier, and then they know where you are and they will knock on your door, right? So definitely this is one important topic. Now, what you said as well in terms of content, I cannot agree with you more. That content, we always said, we've been together, we know each other like since I don't know how many years, right? We worked together in Bermuda.
10 years.
Yeah, 10 years now. Oh my God, right? And I've been in the industry, in the technology and telecom industry for more than 20 years, and we were always saying content is king, right? Now it's even more than king. So we always say that take your time to write and do copywriting, but also, as you said, some entrepreneurs will say it's expensive, or as you said, we want to launch tomorrow, so we don't have time. We're taking all what the supplier is giving us as descriptions, and you gave us a great lesson. I really appreciate what you told us now about content and how Google is going to penalize us over time when they see duplicate content.
Yeah.
So this is great, Keith. Thank you so much for sharing this kind of piece of information. So what else? I am sure you have a long list, but what else?
There's a long list. So there's a trend. So in April of, I think, 2018, there was the European Union issued general data protection regulations called GDPR. Yes. Okay. And at the time, what it did was it forced everybody to clean their databases of email subscribers, so that the email subscribers that they had were people that actually opted into a service instead of just being gathered by a data warehouse. And it caused a kind of a big problem in Europe, because many businesses had their email databases reduced significantly overnight. Okay. But what it actually did was it cleaned up everybody's databases. And then if you're, as an e-commerce store owner, you then legally had the customer's email address. Mm-hmm. So the database of emails that you actually ended up with was a clean database of legitimate people that were going to possibly buy off your store. Okay. So as a result of that, and since that, we are seeing that the majority of stores will garner, I'd say, minimum 10% and up to 40 and 50% of their annual revenue if they correctly use email as a communication tool to the customer. Okay, so when I talk about email, I talk about a number of things. One of them is automated email. And we have all experienced this. We sign up to a newsletter. It says, sign up, get free shipping on your first order. If you're an e-commerce entrepreneur, that works, and everybody will know that. And then you set up an automated welcome series, and you introduce the customer who's purchased based on the discount to your brand. So maybe every 14 days, you say, "Hey, I'm Mark. This is my product based in Nova Scotia." Second email says, our product is sustainable and these are the ingredients. And then maybe the third email after a third week will say, "You know what, you want to come back and buy again? Here's not necessarily a discount, because I'm going to refer to discounts in a second, but so automated emails like browse abandoned cart, and then newsletter discounts automatically delivered, over time will definitely add 10 to 40%. Now, obviously, that's very hard to quantify because it depends on the business. But one of the key measurements of success of an e-commerce business is your return customer rate. And if you can get your return customer rate up to 40%, that means if you sell 10 items, 4 of them are people that bought already. So if you can get it to 50, well, then it's a perfect medium, because 50% are new customers that are going to become the other 50 if they buy a second time. And we see the most success in driving up your customer return rate is by using automated email. Okay. So again, the obsession with Google AdWords and the obsession with CPC and using Facebook marketing and paying Instagram and paying TikTok is fantastic depending on what product you're selling. And of course, there are wonderful channels. But you know, if you use original content, take time to curate the content, and then time to take that content and curate it using, for example, Klaviyo to automate your emails, you're just creating this automated marketing machine. And then very quickly, you'll be 12 months or 2 years in business, and you'll look back and you'll have a beautiful database of people that actually respond to these emails and go, we love your product, you know, keep it up. Okay. So we're seeing the most success on email. So the first thing you do as part of your Shopify build, if it's Shopify, you pay somebody to build a store. And then we personally, and I know that most other agencies in Canada and the US that we interact with, I know that they're all building Klaviyo as part of the build. So if somebody pays me a fee to build a store, I know that I can give them back 20 or 30% very quickly of their investment to me by simply investing in email.
Wow, this is amazing, you know. And what you're talking about now, and then probably we're going to dig a little bit more about more interesting apps that are making a great user experience and customer experience on the store. What I am hearing from you is, technically, before, let's say if today I wake up and I say I want to sell something online, before I just go and log into Shopify and purchase and do whatever, I think I need to build a strategy, right? I need to understand what is my customer journey on this portal. So we need to understand, as you said, what are the different touch points, how I am going to make them stay on the website, how I will make them come back to me, right? What are the different tools which I am giving to my visitors, to my store visitors, so that they build this affinity with our brand and our e-store. And this is one of the pitfalls what I see in my work, because we work on lots of digital strategy. We do digital marketing strategy and corporate strategy for many small, medium enterprises and even entrepreneurs and startups. And one of the major, I would say, shortcomings are that they don't want to build the strategy, a solid strategy from the get-go. They say, oh, you know, I will solve the problem later. And then, as you said, like, if I didn't have, let's say, a proper email management from day one, and I am already operating and I am 1 year into the operation, I already lost 1 year of potential exposure and the exploitation of this information, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we need to have like, going into a strategy, now we understand that first of all, we need to have a great website that looks nice. We know that we need to have great content that has great copywriting and imaging, right? We understand that email marketing is very important, so we need to build something around automation and email automation. What are the other couple of like apps which you would say they are also a must in today's user experience for a Shopify platform?
Yeah, so the apps that you use in Shopify are dependent on your technical capability. So if you have a technical team or you have access to a very good agency, they have a developer on hand.
I have access to you, so you are the perfect access, right?
Well,
so I wouldn't worry about that now.
No, I get that, but we're talking to everybody here, Mark. So
everybody will get access to you.
Okay. We can talk about that. But
I understand what you're saying. Go ahead.
Yeah. So there's 6,000 apps in the Shopify ecosystem, and they do everything. I mean, for example, if I was to list out the apps that we put into every store very quickly, we've gone through automated email, which is effectively an app, but it's a different platform, but it is an app that goes into the store. So straight away, if you want to get your investment back, double down on email. Now, if somebody orders, you also want to ask them for their opinion on the product after. So you need reviews. Okay. So there's an app called Lukes.io, which we add to every store. And after 7 days or 14 days after the product is fulfilled, it will send out an email and it will say, you know what, did you like our product? And it will offer you the ability to take a photo of the product and it will send it back. And some customers will switch on a discount for that. And then that will may result in another order, which then results in a rise in the repeat customer rate. So an app that we would always place in would be a reviews app. Okay. Any app that creates original content on a site is Google Gold. So what happens is you take your reviews in and they create social proof. So after a year, you may have a particular product with, 40 5-star reviews. And in addition to that, what this app does is it takes the content of all of the reviews and it places it in a new page on the store, which Google indexes. So to revert back to the discussion that we had about original content, well, then you have absolutely a page of content, and there is no way any other store in the world has that content, because you have a page whereby customers have specifically written content on your product. So again, it's connected to the original content. Okay. So Luke's is an app that we would put into many stores. There's an interesting app called SEO Manager. So if you don't have SEO staff, you can place it in your store, and then on a daily basis, it will email you with issues on the store. Like you could have, a lot of people make the mistake of hiding products, which then causes a URL error for Google, which will impact your Google ranking. That's automated. And if you take time every week to read those automations, you connect it to your Search Console, and it's a very good app if you don't have SEO staff to actually try your best to keep your SEO ranking up. One app that we put into every single store is called Smart Search and Instant Search, which is basically a search engine for your store. Mm-hmm. So within the Shopify theme community, the theme developers are building themes which have enhanced search. But in actual fact, the one that we recommend and that we put into most stores, if you have more than 50 products, it makes sense, because on a mobile, probably 80% of your visitors will be on mobile. So although mobile browsing is fine, it's always easier if somebody gets a Google experience on the mobile view. And this app will also document to you what people are searching for that you don't have. So let's say you're selling women's dresses and you don't think that your brand is good enough for socks or for hats. Well, maybe you'll see in the Search and Eyes dashboard that people are actually searching for hats, and then that may influence your next product. We've got very large stores that are in the educational sector with thousands and thousands of books. And what they do is they use the analytics in the search app to tell them what people want next. And actually they use that data, they download the CSV and they share it with their purchasing department, and they tell the purchasing department, 50 people search for this, can we consider putting it in? Yeah. So we focus on putting apps into stores, Mark, that will add commercial value, and ultimately the return on investment of every single app is positive and it pays for itself.
So, what you're saying is very interesting, because at some point, all what you're doing really makes sense. And in a way, you are closing the loop, right? So that even you can use this output from the search results so that you can include some information or promotion in your newsletter later, for example, right? To say, listen, because if I see that you search, let's say on hats or whatever, then I will be sending you a product description or a product in my newsletter that is going to, in a way, guarantee as much as possible that you are going to come back to my portal and to my website. And I am sure you're saying that you have around 6,000 apps. So you build lots of experience so that now you know which ones to find and which ones to use, which are going to make the difference on the portal, rather than us going, I would say, as an amateur and trying to search and then do trial and error is going to cost us a lot in money maybe and in bad user experience. Rather than going directly to someone, a professional like you, who's going to help us from the get-go, right? So probably, and my message is, if it seems to be cheaper by not going to experts at the beginning, there is always a price to pay,
Yeah, that's a
right?
good point. Yeah.
In the 6 to 12 months to come, right?
Yeah.
Either a direct cost, like a direct cash injection into the business because you're losing money, or actually a missed opportunity or missed opportunities, which could have resulted in much higher revenue, which you completely lost because you didn't implement the right tools from the get-go, right?
Absolutely, 100%. And the single biggest problem, I said single again, I do apologize, is applications that will inject code onto your site and slow it down.
Yes.
So many apps are just a small piece of code, but it's injected, it slows the front page of your site down, and then Google penalizes you as a result. So what we do in Milk Bottle Labs is we will define the requirement and usually code that if we can. Now, there is some wonderful apps out there. I mean, there's apps that will, present products to the customer that they've already, which are linked to products they've already bought, products that they may have browsed on 30 days ago. There's apps that will automatically. An interesting app, if anybody's interested, is Kimonix. I'll just the last one that I make reference to, where it actually allows you to push products that are out of stock automatically down to the bottom of the collection. So in actual fact, you can bring your bestsellers list. One failure of Shopify is the bestsellers list in Shopify is since the day the shop started. Whereas you can have a collection on your homepage, which is using the Kimonix app, which pushes your bestsellers to the homepage. And then as those products sell, the homepage collection will actually change. Okay. And what it does is it self-merchandises the homepage of your Shopify store. And one of the big administrative tasks of running a Shopify store is actually merchandising the homepage, and managing the store and making sure that the homepage is relevant. So there's apps to do everything, and many of them are super, but some of them, unfortunately, as I say, inject code, and some of them are solving very small problems that a freelance coder could do very quickly.
So let's go a little bit technical over here, because we also face the same problem, I think, on all platforms, whether it's Shopify or not. The minute you add apps in Shopify, or what you call them plugins on WordPress, you start having a slower website, right? So when should I start compromising functionality over optimization of the website? So where should I say, okay, now I stop? Because if I add more functionalities, I might gain in user experience, but I will lose in the speed of the website, and then I am penalized on the Google search, and even as a customer, I will be a little bit annoyed when I see I want to move from a product to another, that it's slow, or when I want to check out, it's slow. So where is there a cutoff somewhere, or there is no real cutoff?
So to go back to what I said earlier on about photography, and what the trend that I see is that a lot of small business owners jump online, do it as quickly as they can, and they forget about the advice on photography. And then about a year or two in, they realize that they've had to add all of these applications to the store to try and boost sales, when in actual fact, beautiful photography sells. Okay. So I heard an agency owner in Ohio, a good friend of mine, Chase, he mentioned recently that in actual fact, the first thing any store owner should do is obsess about photography. So if you obsess about photography, the photo will sell the product for you. Okay. Yeah. So like there's a lot of there's a lot of pop-ups, for example, that will give you a spin the wheel for a discount. There's pop-ups on the left-hand side that will show you what Mary Murphy purchased recently on the store. There's a pop-up on the right-hand side for your rewards program or your loyalty program. So what I would say is just keep the homepage clean and focus on photography. In terms of the number of apps, Shopify did a survey recently. I haven't heard it in the last 2 years, but I think the average store had 16 apps.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
This is a lot. Yeah. I thought much less. Okay.
Well, I've seen stores with 50. But the problem is that a lot of people will put in the 50 and delete them and don't use them. Like we have a piece of advice for everybody that in the Shopify community, you should, what we say is you should audit your apps every quarter, because you install an app, you don't use it, it starts to bill after 14 days or 30 days, and then you forget to take it out. So to answer your question, it really depends on what stage the business is at, because all of these kind of fads that people will add by using apps they're very attractive in the startup phase. But when you get it into a level of maturity, again, when your return customer rate has risen, in actual fact, your customers just want to get onto the site, they want to browse, and they want what Google will call insertions, which are pop-ups and anything in the way, which effectively are apps. And you then go through this cycle of reducing apps and then obsessing about the customer experience, which is then photography. So my advice about photography is jumping that period of time where you start annoying all of your customers and they run away, because on a mobile there's 3 pop-ups and they can't even see the product page. Okay.
You're right.
You're right. I don't know whether that answers your question or not, but
it perfectly answers the question. So what I am getting, I think it's like everything in life. Sometimes you will not believe what someone is telling you until you do it, you hit the wall, and then you burn your fingers and say, okay, you know what, I'm going back to square one, and I am starting to do what, for example, Keith told us today on this webinar. So this is one of the major problems, and I totally agree that you need to audit the not only the apps, the whole website. You need to understand what works, what doesn't work, because even let's say you have 5,000 SKUs, right? But if, for example, 2,000 are not selling at all, then one of the questions that should we keep them on the portal, right? Or should we start cleaning up so that we have a healthier space, a cleaner space, a less complex website? So definitely, yeah, it's the life cycle of the business is very important. And again, I think it's a learning experience, right? But this is why we go to experts, so that we can cut this timeline, right? And the learning curve, instead of taking us 2 years through experts, that we're going to take us 6 months, right? Because you've done it before. As you said, how many e-commerce platforms you set up per year on average?
The best way to answer that is we're probably in 100 stores a year, and
Wow.
Some of them we work on, some of them we don't. So yeah, I think that's a number that reflects our activity.
100 a year is not a small number, I would say, right? So it's like you're averaging 2 stores a month, and we know how long it takes, right?
Yeah, So we would make small fixes on some stores, Mark. So we could be in a store for 2 or 3 days, and then we might not be in it, for 6 months.
Yes.
And then we also have bills, and I mean, some bills will take 16 weeks, 20 weeks, depending on the scale of the project. If it's a migration from another platform, you have to migrate data, so you'll spend longer on that, and you'll also spend time in the competitor platform as well. So it takes time.
Yeah, of course. Keith, I don't know if you realized, but we've been talking for already 52 minutes.
I'm quite happy to stay longer.
I am really looking at this and say, oh my God, time is flying. I am sure we can talk hours and hours about Shopify, about e-commerce platforms, the pros and cons, and the do's and don'ts, and it's a never-ending topic. Keith, I really want to thank you for this, but before we wrap up, what are your final, if you want to give like a final piece of advice to our viewers, what would you tell them?
I would say, referencing what you said earlier on, is plan. If you have a concept, it takes 30 seconds to buy the domain name, but plan. Find help wherever you can and professional advice. And the single biggest, I said it again, most important thing, if you want to make money online, do not design your business around discounts. So if I go back to what I mentioned earlier on about photography, focusing on a small number of products with curated content rather than duplicated content, that all still stands. But just because your competitor, or you think your competitor, is giving 50% off your top line is a lot more than 50% off your overall margin. And you're straight away, you're running a business, which it would be virtually impossible to make money unless you're dealing with a product that has, you know, hundreds of percents of margin. So that my last piece of advice would be, do not start your business based on discounts, because once you give a discount away to your first customer, how on earth are you going to reward your loyal customers that are continuing to buy after, you know, again and again and again? You're running out of cards to play, basically. And it's not a good way to start your business. That's what I'd say.
That's a great piece of advice, Keith. Thank you so much for this exciting discussion, for the valuable information which you gave us. I think these are great tips which anyone who is listening to us or will even watch this recorded session later on our social media will really benefit tremendously from understanding how to think an e-commerce platform. And I am sure that this might not be our last discussion about this. We're going probably find a way to continue the discussion maybe in a while, and see how we can even dig deeper into the Shopify world and the experience which you have and how you can support your customers, your community, and anyone who's really looking to understand how to do an e-commerce platform. So if I want to summarize, so I would just try to say that building an e-commerce platform or portal or store is not something which we can do, or technically we can do it in one day, but the thought process, the planning and the implementation should not be in one day. It needs to be well thought of. As we said, it needs to be strategized so that we understand which customer experience we want to build on the portal, so that we bring in the right and the correct apps into the theme and into the environment. Seek the help of experts, because you will really reduce cost on the long term. And at the end of the day, what you said at the beginning, don't start with doing just discounts, right? It's more about trying to build the value and try to build a story about your store, which is going to sell. And then I will go back to one more thing: photography and content. Photography and content management, copywriting are going to bring organic growth to your website without really paying lots of CPC and into your business. So with this, Keith, I really want to thank you for your time, for the valuable information you gave us. I just want to remind all our viewers that we are live on a weekly basis every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Atlantic Time. Every week we have a new guest. Please check our lineup on our website. You have all the lineup for April. We already announced it as well. So we still have 2 in March, and April is just around the corner. And with that, I want to thank everyone, Keith, once again. And I hope that we'll be seeing each other, you know, after all that time, either in Dublin, or you will come to Nova Scotia, or maybe we meet again like we did last time, right? Where did we go together?
Colombia.
Colombia, right? We spent a wonderful time in Colombia. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So
when I watched the Narcos series, it reminded me of the holiday.
Yeah. So maybe one day we will do it again when all this COVID craziness is behind us. So with this, I want to end our session today. Have a great day, Keith. Thank you so much for your time, and for our viewers as well. And we'll see you on our next webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. My pleasure.
Okay, bye.